time right. Good evening, members. Apparently the clock is 2 minutes slow and it is now past. I'm reliably informed. It is. Right, good evening. I'm Councillor Stuart Jeffrey, Leader of the Council, and I'm pleased to welcome you to this meeting of the Cabinet. May I take this opportunity to advise you that if the fire alarm does sound, please remain seated, and members of the Democratic Services team will... Don't make me laugh, please. It's been a very long day. We'll assess the situation and give further instructions on the evacuation of the building if necessary. Tonight's proceedings will be webcast by the Council, but if anyone else is intending to record these proceedings, can you please let me know now? Nobody reserving their rights? He's not here, is he? I ask this question not to stop you, but to merely ensure that members and members of the public in the room know that this is taking place. Item 1, apologies for absence. Councillor English.
Apologies, Mr. Chairman, members, I shall have to leave fairly quickly this evening. It was a relatively brief visit. I've got to go to another meeting.
Thank you, Councillor English. No other apologies? No, I think we're all here. Item 2, urgent items. There are no urgent items. Item 3, notification of visiting members. The gallery is not very packed and there are none. Item 4 is disclosures by members and officers. Are there any disclosures by members and officers?
None from us.
I see no disclosures. Are there any disclosures of lobbying?
Item 22.
Item 17, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Okay, item 6, to consider whether any items should be taken in private. I move that all items be taken in public. However, if members wish to discuss the information contained within the exempted appendices to item 24, the Maidstone East and Sandy Road Project Delivery and Investment Plan, it will be necessary to move into a closed session due to the likely disclosure of exempt information for the reasons specified, having applied the public interest test. Is that agreed? Item 7, minutes of the meeting held 18th of December. I move that these minutes be approved as a correct record and signed. Is that agreed? Item 8, presentation of petitions. There are none. Item 9, questions from local residents to the leader or individual cabinet member. There are none. Item 10, questions from members to the leader or individual cabinet members. There are none. Item 11, matters referred to the Cabinet by any other committee for reconsideration. There are none. Item 12, issues arising from overview and scrutiny. There are none. Item 13, matters referred to the Cabinet by any other committee. There are none. Item 14, any matter relating to serious service failure or nuisance. There are none. And item 15, written receipt of representations from members of the Council. There are none. Item 16 is the Cabinet Forward Plan. Members, do you have any comments? Councillor Summersgill and then Wales.
Just a note on page 16, an item for the Maidstone House and Link decarbonisation has been moved back to a month. It's not coming to Cabinet for a decision on the 5th of February. And I realise the forward plan has been updated since this was issued, I think.
Thank you. Councillor Wales? Oh, sorry. Anybody else on the forward plan? Okay, is the forward plan noted? Lovely. Item 17. This is the Kent farmers, growers and wider Maidstone food and drink industry. Councillor Thompson, you're presenting this with Mr Evans, I believe.
Thank you, Chair. And very good to see Officer Mike Evans with us this evening. Very nice to have you in the building with us. The report that we've seen at PAC and that has come to our papers is written in our response to the motion passed by Cabinet in November and that was brought to Council previously. You'll forgive me for pointing out that it includes a great number of items which we signalled in our programme in May and June that we intended to carry forward. It is nice to know, very encouraging to know that there is wide acceptance beyond the councillors present in the room today for many of these excellent initiatives. Mr Evans and Chris Inwood and I have been working together to scope out what the steps forward could be to get from where we are in terms of our economy and our provision of local food and food products to a very local, very sustainable circular economy type model for our local provision. We knew it wouldn't be easy. The items that were brought forward by members for this item are helpful steps in that process, and a great deal of energy has been put in by various officers in MBC to work out how it is that, for example, we can make the vision of farmers' markets more prevalent in the borough. So actions 8 to 15 are in Chris Inwood's remit, and we've heard of those through the economic development strategy, and there are more details of those following. In particular, he and I are paying a visit to a large local food production business and hub in the near future that shows that we are not the only visionaries in this area. There is considerable established farming and business interest already present and active in the borough and beyond it. So we're going to learn from them and find out what their insights and wisdom is. I certainly am not pretending to be bringing my wisdom first to the table, because that's not my area of expertise. On the matter of farmers' markets in particular, actions 16 and 17, Mike Evans has been working on those with us here. During December, the market team began a feasibility mapping for the town centre farmers market proposal, and more information about that is going to come forward in due course because the paperwork's still being put together. We've learnt from the engagement that the current traders under their current business models are reluctant to take on a regular farmers market in the town centre as they see it at the moment. We do have 2 farmers markets at Lock Meadow each year, one in the summer and one at Christmas, and there is also a regular fruit and veg seller down at the Week Street, Earl Street junction. At the moment, there isn't a great deal of expectation amongst the existing traders that could be made more frequent. That's an informed point of view that, as I say, with other stakeholders and business people, we wish to test, explore and discover creatively how that might change. Our research is also starting to look at virtual markets. Officers have had meetings with, for example, Kent Food Hubs, the not-for-profit, with KCC backing to enable greater access to local food. So residents can get, for example, local pickups and such like. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a stall in the square outside, although we are not parking that idea completely at the moment. Kent Food Hubs works in Folkestone, Hythe, Whitstable, Herne Bay, and they have expressed interest in working in Maidstone. So these are the ongoing findings to add to the details that you've already seen in these papers. I'm delighted that Mike's with us this evening, and he's certainly looking forward to your questions and feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Mr Evans, did you want to add anything to that? Okay, thank you. Before I open it up to members, thank you for the report. I think there is something that around that farmers market, and I think I certainly note the risks associated with it, which you flagged, which is helpful. But I think we kind of need to be bold and mitigate those risks, because we do want to make that connection between the local producers and the town, and the town is very clearly a place to buy food, as well as all the other things we can do here. So questions from the Cabinet. Councillor English, and then Wells.
Not so much a question, but an observation. Obviously, I'm a Bearsted Parish Councillor, and Bearsted has had a fairly successful farmers market for some time. However, what I would observe is that that didn't come out fully formed overnight. It took quite a lot of research, planning and organisation, and I suspect if the parish council had tried to just set it up like that over on a very short-term period without all that preparation work, it would probably have fallen over like some others. So I think it's important that we take our time insofar as we can. I mean, obviously there are deadlines, but actually prepare it properly and get things set up rather than say, no, we've got to do this in, say, 3 months or something, because then it could easily fall over as previous attempts have sort of fallen over because they probably didn't take the time to actually do the groundwork and to actually consult and bring in enough of the actual producers that we need.
Yeah, thank you. And for those of you who remember Councillor Eagle, he did run a farmers market in the town centre for, I think, 2 or 3 years, but it was hard work to get it going. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Chair. This is all very strong on support for farmers and food growers, which obviously we all support. But I wondered, as farmers are custodians of huge swathes of countryside, what is the quid pro quo to this? Is there a charter for farmers on how they farm the land? I don't know. It's not my area, but it just struck me as that's the other side of the coin, isn't it, really?
A very good point. Would any, Mr. Evans, would you like to give some thoughts on that, or maybe one of the cabinet members? It's an interesting question. You can say no if you don't want to, but we can come back to it.
Thank you, Chair. That was going to be the crux of my response, was it doesn't feel like my area of expertise, but I'd kind of leave it to more qualified people to comment on that.
No problem. Mrs. Broom.
So if I might make a suggestion, this report has come forward because there was a specific motion at council. So the scope was therefore defined for us. My instinct is that the best place to pursue your particular interests in terms of farming methodology and protection of the landscape or the soil or whatever principle is best done through the Biodiversity and Climate Change Action Plan work. And you have a golden opportunity because that is in a process of review at the moment, and I'm sure your colleague, Councillor Summerskill, will have heard what you've said and take that on board. I feel I've been a bit pushy there, but it seems a logical way forward to me.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Nagy.
I was involved with Derek a bit, helping him set up, because he set up around County Hall. So I'd be very interested to hear his views, because he did try to have a sustainable market for a while. Be very interested to hear his views on where we might be able to make it work this time, where it didn't work last time. And obviously, my farmers market that I have at River Festival, he also does Aylesford and Tunbridge, and so he's quite around. He's got insight into local farmers and producers. So if get in touch with him for his view, that would be very interesting too.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure Mr. Evans will take advantage of those contacts. Councillor Cox.
Yeah, I love a farmer's market because very often you've got an opportunity to buy goods or particularly produce that maybe you've never even seen before or thought about how you'd cook. And actually that's sort of taken me on particular food experiences that I've really enjoyed. My request relates to item 7, where we're talking about the existing fruit and vegetable trader. I think he's got I assume it's a he, has got a very sort of like loyal customer base, and I think it's really important that we completely envelop and involve him in whatever we're doing, because A, he will have a good insight into what works, but B, his loyalty, I think, sort of like, yeah, deserves a little bit of respect as well. Thank you.
Any final points on this? Okay. So 2 recommendations. One, that all existing actions numbered 1 to 7 are noted, and secondly, that new actions numbered 18 to 7 are progressed. Is that agreed? Item 18 is the Green Sand Ridge National Landscape Designation. Councillor Harwood.
Right, thank you, Chair and colleagues. As colleagues are aware, there's long been an aspiration to see the recognition through landscape designation that the Green Sand Ridge, I think, deserves. But in the past, our attempts to see the Green Sand Ridge considered for at that time area of outstanding natural beauty, founded on Natural England and their concern that they really didn't have the funding to adopt new areas or put in place major extensions. However, an opportunity has arisen through the new management plan that's being developed for the Kent Downs National Landscape to consider strategic extensions, and there was a really good debate at the last Joint Advisory Committee for the National Landscape, which was held in Snodland, and at that meeting it was agreed that we should look at extensions, but with some fairly kind of strict parameters, and that was that they were a substantial enough area and they were genuinely strategic, and they added real value to the brand, if you like, of the Kent Downs National Landscape. And I think that has been a real opportunity for us. I think that Maidstone Borough has hidden its light under a bushel a little bit in terms of some of our landscapes, and just doing the mapping work, which you will see at page 46 of your papers, there is the proposed extension area outlined in red, and just the symmetry of this area, it just works so well. It tidies up some of the quite strange boundary emissions along the southern edge of the existing Kent Downs area, where some of the areas which are north of the M20, for no reason, because they're just as attractive, if not more so, than some of the neighbouring areas that are included, are outside, and historically why that was, we don't know. But of course, the M20, when the AONB boundaries were drawn up, that part of the M20 didn't exist. It basically stopped the northern bypass at the A249. So I think that transport infrastructure has kind of rounded areas off subsequent to the AONB borders being set. But as you can see here, it really goes through the areas like those just north of Bearsted, going on to Chrismill Lane and so on, where there is, and Barty Farm and so on, where there is some very attractive rolling countryside, and then moves along to the kind of wilder landscape where you've got Snarkhurst Wood and some of the very kind of wet galt clay woodlands, which again are remarkably attractive, but were outside of the parameters. And then it sweeps down south, taking in areas, I suppose, through from the grounds of Leeds Castle, that kind of historic landscape, through Kingswood, the largest area of woodland, and coppice woodland at that, is still rotationally coppiced within the borough, through to Fairbourne Heath, with again a very different kind of heathland landscape, and then finally kind of conks out a Platts Heath, and where Pleasant Forest is going in, the big Forestry Commission project, and again a very attractive landscape, lots of features, streams and ponds and so on. And then that's where it links into the Green Sand Ridge, and that Green Sand Ridge sweep takes you right through to the deer parks of Linton and so on, and the really kind of mysterious countryside further up around Elmstone Hole and that sort of area. well, I know we've had a lot of discussion around gibbets, but I don't know if we're setting it up again, but so that again works very well. And I think the other thing which works very nicely is incorporating the Len Valley landscape in, because I think that is an attractive, deeply incised stream which is very unspoiled. The kind of butterfly meadows between Caring Lane and Autumn Lane, for example. But quite vulnerable because of its proximity to the urban centre, but an absolutely important landscape for residents in the area and for ecology. So I think that we have got a very strong case to prove to the Joint Advisory Committee in their management plan review that this landscape is beautiful and is worthy of national landscape designation. And if it is agreed and assimilated into the Kent Downs, essentially we'll have this crescent of beautiful protected landscape sweeping around the town, and I think it provides almost our own green belt, and I think it works. It's just that kind of just the symmetry of it. I've walked every bit of it now, and every bit of it is achingly beautiful. So I think it'll work. So I would say, can we agree the recommendations and crack on?
Thank you, Councillor Howard. Mr. Jarman, did you want to add anything to that?
No, thank you.
Okay. Comment. Okay. Thank you, Councillor English. Anyone want to speak on this? No. Okay. Therefore, the recommendation that you have proposed, I believe, is to resolve the officers propose an extension to the Kent Downs National Landscape to encompass the Greensand Ridge to Kent Downs National Landscape Unit as part of the statutory review of the Kent Downs National Landscape Management Plan by 9th of June 2025. Are we agreed? Fantastic. Excellent. Right. Item 19 is the council tax base and collection fund adjustment. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Chair. Setting the tax base is an integral part of the council's budget for the coming year, and that's both in terms of the number and classification of households. Regulations prescribe that a decision on the tax base must be made between the 1st of November and the 31st of January. So we're hurtling towards that. Council tax income is accounted in a standalone collection fund. The proposed allocation of collection fund deficits or surpluses, as the case may be, between this council and major preceptors is set out in section 3.13 of this report. The tax base, after making allowances for new properties and non-collection amounts to £68,000, shade over that. Available options are set out in section 3 on page 58 and the recommendation on page 53. Happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Mr. Green, did you want to add anything?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would just draw members' attention to paragraph 3.3, which states that we've had to build in a higher allowance for non-collection of council tax because Kent County Council are withdrawing the incentives that they've previously provided, which means that we have fewer resources to collect council tax. So it's worth members just being aware of that, and that feeds through into our overall budget, which is the next item. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments from members?
The tax base is what it is. There isn't a huge amount one can do about it.
Good. Okay. Now, if there aren't any comments, there are 3 recommendations. I'll read them out. Pursuant to this report and in accordance with the local authority calculation council tax base England regulations 2012, the amount calculated by this authority as its council tax base for the year 25-26 be 68,085.5. In accordance with the local, number 2 is in accordance with the local authority council's calculation of council tax base England regulations 2012, the amount calculated by the authority as the council tax base for each parish area for the year 2025-26 will be identified in Appendix, as identified in Appendix 2 of this report, and the 24-25 council tax projection and proposed distribution detailed in Appendix 3 of this report is agreed. Do we? Is that agreed? Excellent. Moves us on to the medium-term financial strategy, 25 to 30, savings proposals and capital programme. Councillor Cox, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I believe most of you have reviewed this in depth already in various packs. You can say that again. But in absence of that, this report is a key element of setting a budget for the coming year, 25-26, and a draft of the new rolling medium-term financial strategy for the next 5 years, 25-26 to 29-30, is set out herein. It's worth saying that these figures and the propositions here were created before any knowledge of the local government review, but it's worth also saying that in spite of that, we have to carry on exactly as we are and continue to plan ahead as if it were not happening. The revenue budget proposals are also contained in this document, and also a draft capital programme. This MTFS is developed in parallel with the new corporate strategy, and it reflects the 4 key priorities set out in the corporate strategy. The MTFS describes the constraints and context in which the corporate strategy must be delivered, and including the external economic environment and the council's own financial position. And a prudent set of assumptions has been made for planning purposes and the detailed budget proposals herein. So in your report, you'll see the revenue budget proposals, the draft capital programme, and it's important to note that the biggest element in the capital programme is the council's Quality Homes for Life programme, which looks at building up council housing, and particularly a housing investment fund that will permit us to subsidise affordable and social housing. I'll hand over to Mr. Green if he has any further comments.
I've nothing to add to that.
Councillor English.
We have looked at this emerging strategy and budget proposals in detail, but not just us. The council as a whole, through its procedures, have commented on some of the aspects. I would like to say thank you to Mark and his team, and also to Kathy for all of the work they've put in on this. I think this represents both a prudent and in some ways quite an ambitious programme, and the finances for it, particularly in relation to both housing and biodiversity and environmental investment in the future of the borough, whatever governance arrangements we have in years to come. So people should not assume that just because the deck chairs are being arranged that the ship is not continuing to sail. We are, and I commend this budget proposals to the Cabinet.
Thank you. Any other? Councillor Wales?
Just to say that with so many still on the housing waiting list and in temporary accommodation, I'm very pleased to say that we are managing to maintain our support in that area. It is crucial for the people of Maidstone. I'm very grateful that it's still there. Thank you.
Thank you. No other. I'll propose, if you would. Sorry, Clive. Councillor Wales has seconded it. Brilliant.
I was trying to second the Greensand Ridge one because it's through my ward, and my ward colleague brought it up in the first place, but I was preempted by someone who lives miles from it.
Children, stop fighting. No, I just wanted to add to just second Clive's comments on the fact that this kind of feels really quite good, and it's the direction that we're keen to take. So that is really good. So you've proposed and seconded to approve that the draft medium-term financial strategy for 25-26 to 29-30 set out in Appendix A, the revenue budget proposal set out in Appendix B, the capital strategy principles set out in paragraph 4.6, and the capital programme proposal set out in Appendix D. Are we agreed? Fantastic.
And on that auspicious note, Mr. Chairman, members, I'll have to bid you a good evening.
Thank you, Clive. I'm not sure who's going to second all the motions now, but right, moving on to item 21, which I think is the Mason Museum refresh of local history gallery. I haven't got this turned over. Page 126, thank you. And Councillor Thompson, I believe you're...
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to point out what a spectacular gift and asset we have in Maidstone Museum, this hub for all things arts, culture, heritage events and community activities. The Lit Fest last year in particular made excellent use of that venue. The paper here that we're looking at is focused particularly on the refreshing of the local history gallery. It very modestly at 2.4 draws attention to the £100,000 donation from the William and Edith Oldham Trust. Very fittingly, the new gallery will be renamed the Oldham Gallery, and over the page you'll see that due to Natalie Moore's supplications, a further £19,000 has been awarded, with another application for £25,000 to be considered this March. We are hugely grateful to our benefactors for these considerable sums and support. The Lives in Our Landscape Gallery, of course, is shiny and spectacular and brilliant in all sorts of ways. Our museum is the best, showing the best of postmodern historiography. We've got evidenced and rational academic standards, and we've got inclusivity of a wide variety of histories, of communities, of individuals, including Mr. Bentliff and his round the world travels. It's a lesson for our times. And not least, at 2.6 you'll see the huge ambition, which I regret not bringing more attention to in the pack. We have a target date of July 2025 for the refreshing of the Lives in Our Landscape Local Histories Gallery. Very impressed to see the energetic work that is going on there. There has been considerable focus group consultation on this gallery refresh. I've had further meetings with Natalie Moore and Ros Meredith, our education staff member at the museum, and I'm engaging in some activities with local schools in the near future. We're looking at further extending the networking around the museum. As I say, it's a hub for many of the other things that we do in our programme, and we had some remarks from Mark Green at informal cabinet this morning that mentioned some of those, and I would like to give him an opportunity to just fill us in on what might on the surface seem to be regular administrative details, but they are important because of the ongoing networking. So Mark, if you'd like to address those, please.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Yes, Councillor Thompson's alluded to the fact that the museum works with a number of different bodies, not just the Oldham Trust that is mentioned here, but Maidstone Museums Foundation, the Bentliff Trust, the Queen's Own Royal West Kent Trust. So we will be maintaining and developing those relationships, and working with Councillor Thompson will ensure that we make every use of the supporters that we have for the museum.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Any comments from Cabinet members? Councillor Cox.
I just want to say I think it's one of the most inviting and inspirational spaces that we've got. I love the Lives in Our Landscape Gallery. You come out of there with a warm, fuzzy feeling, and obviously there's a range of other displays also on offer. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to the new gallery, and I think it's a really good initiative.
Absolutely. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, not directly linked to this project, but I think interpretation and promotion of Maidstone's history should not be confined to the museum. I mean, we've got lots of sites, whether it be, you know, the former Sharps factory, where I mean, my brother used to pick the wasps out of the soft mints, through to the, you know, and so it was his job with a long spoon.
I can feel a lawsuit coming on from Sharps now.
and of course we had, you know, the breweries and the Foster Clark, you know, custard factory and the paper mills. You know, I can remember working in you know, rigid paper in Tovel when my kind of school holidays and things. So I think some of the interpretations you see in Folkestone, where it's got photographs of workers there from, you know, right through from the kind of 19th century through to the kind of 70s and whatever. It works really well, and I think we're a rapidly growing town. Lots of people are new to this town, new to this country indeed, and I think if we can make our heritage accessible, I think it helps just bind the community together. So there may be ways and means of bringing in you know, further funding through bequests and grants and things. But you know, I would just like to take history out of the museum a little bit.
Yeah,
you know, I did my bit with the various kind of the War Memorial for the Civil War, for example, just over the way in Bletchley Gardens, and the Louis Nolan statue I was quite involved in. But I think it's important interpretation.
Absolutely, I think yes, we have got a rich history, and we need to celebrate it because it brings that sense of place that you feel part of it. Councillor
Brings us
Nagy.
back to the gibbet, doesn't it? But I don't think we should celebrate that.
Okay. Councillor Nagy.
Thank you, Chairman. At the River Festival, we always promote the museum, and if it is going to be finished sometime in July, we could launch it and make it a big opening with the mayor. We always have the mayor, and we always promote. Usually, Steampunk do take over now, so they can advertise themselves. So, quite the offer's there if we would do it anyway. But if they want to make it a bit bigger and a bigger bash, just get in touch.
Thank you. Good. I can't see anyone else indicating. The report is for noting. Is it noted? Seconded and noted. Right. Item 22, public sector-led garden community, Councillor Wales.
Thank you very much, Chair. The public sector-led garden community, Heathlands, was initiated by Maidstone Borough Council, acting as land promoter and developer, rather than the local planning authority in 2019. And it's as well to draw the public and the press's attention to the fact that Maidstone Borough Council as promoter is very different from the local planning authority. In 2021, the council entered a joint venture with Homes England to further advance the project, ostensibly to promote Heathlands through Maidstone's local plan review, to secure it as an allocation, and then to submit an outline planning application for Heathlands too. Homes England undertook also to take on a broader role for Heathlands in terms of undertaking the land assembly from the principal landowners. And the partnership with Homes England has proven robust throughout the lifespan of the joint venture, and there's a productive working relationship established between officers of both entities. And it's good because that relationship is also helping with the funding for affordable homes in lots of other sites that we're promoting, and it's a relationship that we would want to continue to foster. The initial aim of the joint venture was achieved in 2024, in as much as Heathlands is now an allocation in Maidstone's adopted local plan review. Indeed, it's the largest allocation in the local plan review and is now essential to delivering Maidstone's broader housing supply. The precursor to submitting the outline planning application would ideally be for the local planning authority to adopt a supplementary planning document, an SPD, for Heathlands. Joint promoters are supporting the local planning authority with this task and are in the process of providing them with a comprehensive evidence base to include several technical surveys which will inform the SPD contents. Assuming it is adopted in late 2025, it's envisaged that the outline planning application will be submitted in 27, with the intention being that the first homes are built by the end of the decade. The business case for Heathlands Railway Station, which is a requirement of the site policy in the LPR, is also being advanced by the co-promoters. The report asks the committee to note the progress made to date, which has been strong, and also to approve the further financial investment in the project. And I would draw the members' attention to the page on the risks as well, because we need to make sure that those are fully understood and mitigated. Any monies that the council invests in the project will be recovered as a top slice off any receipts generated through the onward sale of development land parcels to the commercial development sector, assuming the project proceeds to the delivery stage. Furthermore, should the project reach this stage, the council will have the right of first refusal to acquire the envisaged 40% of affordable housing. This could be up to 1,600 affordable homes on the site, and the 14 hectares of commercial property land too will also have the council's first refusal. So I look forward to the debate and recommend this report to members.
Thank you. Mr. Cornell, did you want to come in on anything here? Not at this stage. Dr. Garnett, anything you want to add? No. Okay. Comments from members. Councillor Cox.
Thank you. I think, I think it's appropriate I speak first as ward member. I've been thinking a lot about this, this application and this paper, and I've had to do it with a number of hats on. So my first one, obviously, is I'm a resident, I'm a local resident, and I've got views on this development as a result of that. My second one is a ward member, and, you know, obviously my obligation and duty to respect and represent people within the ward. My third one, however, is as cabinet member and particularly responsible for corporate resources, which means that I've got the responsibility for financial fiduciary and making sure we're making the right decisions. And my fourth, along with all of my colleagues here from cabinet, is as promoter of this scheme. Having to sort of square all of those sort of like, you know, those priorities has been sort of quite a lot of deliberation. I'll be taking that into account in the way I summarise my position on this later today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harwood, did you just say? No. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Joan. I think thank you for the report. It's big and ambitious, and there's issues around the future in the way the local authority goes. But I think that I am very content that we're going in the right direction. And I think from my portfolio's perspective, the thing that I'm most excited by is the supplementary planning document to make sure that we do deliver the quality of product which the residents and the future residents of this new neighbourhood will demand. And to some extent the local plan review was quite light touch, so it feels us to fill in some gaps around the way that we kind of perceive this to work, and I think it is just about quality, and it is about fitting this into a rural landscape, because this is a rural community, not an urban community dropped into the countryside. And in terms of its sustainability in the long term, in terms of its design, in terms of the whole feel and character of this site, this is and must be a rural settlement first.
Thank you. Councillor Cox.
I just wanted to pick up on the SPD process. So just for the benefit of anybody who doesn't know the acronym, that's the supplementary planning document process. And to me, as a new councillor, you know, the local plan was agreed before I'd even been elected. And coming into this role, having to come to terms with what the local plan actually means. One of the things I've come to realise is that the supplementary planning documents, we'll call them SPDs, are absolutely vital in what happens next with this garden community, and they're our best chance. You know, myself, not just myself, but other councillors for the ward and also the local parish council. to have a really big say and influence over, you know, what the eventual development here looks to become. I've explored with various people in various iterations, well, what if we didn't? What if we didn't do the SPDs? And actually the universal answer is, well, you don't really want that scenario, because it means if the development sort of doesn't, or the proposition for the development doesn't go ahead as is, we effectively give, I call it a free pass, but I think it's called a developer charter, to developers to come in and you know, do what they want. So this is, from my point of view and my understanding, the best way of controlling it, and you know, I remain committed to the SPD process. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. As ward member for Boxley Downs, I sit with Councillor Jones on the stakeholder steering group for the Lidsing allocation. Of course, I have particular interest, therefore, in watching this. I was pleased to join Helen and Councillor Cox in a briefing on the Heathlands community, looking at the updated information on the map with great interest. It is comforting to see the expertise brought by our officers. As we all here know, and it would be good, I think, to post notice for those watching and listening, we gave our officers a significant grilling today on features in this paper. We are giving close attention to the details of these proposals. And in the light of two recent newspaper articles, one in Tunbridge and Malling, where we see an officer has taken away the presumed right of members to comment on a planning application in Tunbridge and Malling, to great consternation. And we also see another case in Folkestone, where a planning committee passed a controversial decision. We are in a difficult place, but I would like to post notice here that I am comforted and impressed with the rigour shown by my colleagues along this table of various political colours, and the energy shown by our officers, and the straightforward answers that we've had recently from them about these things. This gives me confidence, not only with regard to Heathlands, but also for Lidsing and our general process of overseeing the bringing into reality of our local plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sumsgill.
Thank you. Just looking at the items about risk, this fourth bullet point is the land assembly for the remaining unsecured land remains a risk. I note that we have 75% secured. Are we actually, do we have to have 100% secured, or can the project be adjusted if it's not 100% secured?
That's a question for Mr. Cornell or Dr. Garnett.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Sumsgill. I think the ideal is to get the principal land ownerships secured. That's what we've been aiming to do all the way through. I've always sort of been optimistic that we'll arrive at that position. When I say we, I really mean Homes England, because it's Homes England under the terms of the joint venture that are charged with actually doing the principal land ownerships. I think they're in an extremely strong place. I think the two remaining principal owners, you know, would have wanted to see how the local plan phase played out and the challenges to it and so on, and those sort of final hurdles have now been cleared, and through the meetings I attend, seems that, you know, the negotiations are heading in the right direction. So I think it is an important thing, but I would remain optimistic.
Thank you, Mr. Cornell. Can I ask a question on 2.29? The second to last bullet point talks about the railway station, and as we know, there's a requirement in the local plan for the railway station to be delivered in phase 1. And there's a figure of £800,000 to produce the business case, which feels a reasonable figure. And I'm assuming that £800,000 is included in the figure of additional 5 million. Can I ask, and it's not for today, but can we have at a future date a timetable around the OBC and FBC and agreement on the time on the railway station? Because clearly the plan, the building can't, phase one can't be completed without the station being there. So I want to make sure that the two work streams are aligned.
Yes, absolutely. The topic is scheduled for discussion at the next steering group meeting upon which you sit with Homes England. It's going to be a topic on the agenda because you've raised it, and rightly so. And once we sort of work through those.
Thank you. Councillor Cox.
Thank you. So thank you for raising the railway station. We talked about it at length already today, how much of a concern that is to local people, and we've heard each other loud and clear on that. I'd like to add one more request to Councillor Jeffries, which is on 2.31. And I recognise what I'm about to ask for isn't an exact science, but I'd like to see a breakdown of that 1.944 million into, you know, what percentage or ratio goes towards the SPD evidence base and what towards the planning application. That would give me much more certainty and confidence. Thank you.
Yes, that's possible. I would add at this point that some of the evidence crosses both, so it's difficult to say what's assigned to the SPD and whatever, but yes, we can give you that breakdown. Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously, there's two options. One is to withdraw and not fund the rest of it, and that means we lose control and significant money that's already been invested. And the other is to continue, and that's the recommendation to the cabinet. Is anyone else wanting to speak? I can't see any hands. Councillor Wales, are you proposing this?
Yeah, I'm happy to propose and also to thank Dr. Garnett for all her hard work in getting it to this stage, okay, and the rest of the department over there as well. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder for this? Councillor Thompson's going to second. So the proposal is that the report be noted, an additional spend of 2.5 million associated with providing the supplementary planning documents to support the LPA in the submission of the outline planning be agreed. Is that agreed? Okay, so there's 6 for and 1 abstention. Yep. Thank you. Stick the microphone on. Councillor Wales, item 23, residential rent setting policies.
Thank you very much. You wait all evening for a chance to speak and you get 3 in a row. Rent and service charge setting policies. 3 rent setting policy documents outline the way Maidstone Borough Council Housing sets its rents. A separate policy for each tenure group, social and affordable, Maidstone Property Holdings and temporary accommodation. And these are made available to current residents and other stakeholders via the Council's web pages. Each policy outlines the approach taken to set and raise rents and service charges, primarily influenced by the government's published rent standards document. There's recently been confirmation from the government that rents will increase by CPI plus 1% going forwards for social housing. That is a maximum possible increase set at 7%. The 2025-26 increase is set at CPI plus 1%, and CPI in September 24, the reference point was 1.7%. Maidstone Property Holdings rents are set at local market rates at the time of letting. In temporary accommodation, rents are set to reflect the 2011 local housing allowance rates, where residents are accommodated in Maidstone Borough Council housing or in properties provided by other landlords. This is proposed to continue for rent charged to residents accommodated through other landlords. This paper recommends that Maidstone Borough Council housing for owned and leased properties begins to charge rents at 2024 local housing allowance levels in line with housing benefit guidance. This higher level of housing benefit entitlement for residents would increase income to Maidstone Borough Council housing by approximately £600,000 per annum, based on the current 160 units of accommodation owned and managed on short leases. And this was a point that was queried at the PAC, where some members believed that this meant that we were taking money from residents just to highlight money that's come from the government and residents wouldn't get anyway. The benefit of this is increased income contributes to Maidstone Borough Council continuing to provide council housing for temporary accommodation residents, giving our homelessness services more easy access to directly managed accommodation, which is safe, warm and dry. So I recommend the report to colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Mr. Corner, did you want to add anything? No. So just to reiterate, this is a zero cost to the residents and a £600,000 cost to the government. Excellent. Any comments from the Cabinet? No. So we're proposing that we'll provide the rent setting policies across the Council's residential housing stock on affordable and social housing, temporary accommodation and Maidstone property holdings. The report proposes changes relating to the application of regulations. Sorry, that's the wrong page. So, reading it without thinking there. So, the report makes the following recommendations: that the attached appendices be it's been a long day. The attached appendices to the report be approved. The revised charge calculation be applied to Maidstone Borough Council owned and short-term leased temporary accommodation, and the Head of Housing Regulatory Services in agreement with the Head of Finance be given delegated authority to amend temporary accommodation rental charges in exceptional cases as set out in section 5 of the report. Is that agreed? So, on to item 24, final item. Maidstone East Sandling Road Project Delivery and Investment Plan. As mentioned, if we do need to go into part 2, then if there are questions on, detailed questions on the finance, then we'll have to do that, but I prefer if we didn't. Councillor Wales.
Yes, I prefer not to go into closed session. It would take such a long time to clear the public gallery. So, having secured planning application, so this item relates to the procurement and investment plan for the delivery of the 180 units, or homes, commercial space, landscaping and public park as part of the redevelopment of the former Royal Mail sorting office. The site has a resolution to grant planning and the Memorandum of Understanding and Section 106 has been agreed. The report covers the procurement process and time frame and proposed tenure mix of the development being delivered as 100% social rented. The report covers the two-stage procurement process, design stage and work stage, taking into account the new requirement to achieve sign-off on the drawings from the Building Safety Regulator, currently estimated at around 8 months, and prior to commencement of any works. The report and appendices also provide anticipated costings for both the design stage element and the proposed works cost. Funding sources have been identified and the level of funding required from each source highlighted in the financial summary appendix. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cornwall, no? Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, very similar to Councillor Cox on the last one. I have quite a big stake in this as a ward councillor, and I think what we have done here in terms of, I think, a very balanced development in terms of the critical infrastructure that's coming along with it, has certainly influenced a much more positive reception to this scheme within the local area than historically was the case, let's say. and I think it shows that in politics you can achieve some good things, and as officers you can, because I think the tenet of a civilised place is having green spaces, it's having medical facilities and so on, which we are currently lacking within quite a densely populated urban area. And so just developing that point, there's a lot within the report about delivering, if you like, the bricks and mortar and the overall project plan, and I think we'd all like it to happen kind of quicker, but understand that we need to follow certain processes. But what I am very keen to do is to lock in those high quality infrastructure issues, and I would welcome, for example, an early bid against community infrastructure levy or so on the green space, so that we can guarantee it's of very high quality. We know exactly what we're going to get. We can kind of forward announce that. We can get some local engagement on those issues. And similarly, the time we are afforded by the various processes that we need to run, it gives us the opportunity to lock in the medical facilities which are much needed and so on, so that we are delivering the whole package, and there are no kind of loose ends to be tied up, but we know exactly what's happening. We've got it all in place, and the whole thing moves very smoothly through the process and methodology. But there are opportunities. We do have funding streams and so on. I note the points around, we can make bids and so on, but I think it's certainty that we need, and if there are routes such as SIL, I think we need to lock them in as early as we can in the process.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Any other comments on this? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. It is very instructive to me, still as a very new and wet behind the ears councillor with minimal experience in this place, to see just how ambitious and far-reaching these proposals are. It is gratifying to see that some very simple sentences with excellent implications are found in this report at 2.14. It says that the assumption is that all of the homes will be for social rent with regard to the financial modelling, and it recognises that the mandate from the Cabinet at 2.15 is to build 1,000 social rented homes as soon as possible. It is, and that's the base case assumption set out in the report. We have set some very challenging and ambitious targets and aspirations for ourselves, and I'm delighted to see that officers have found ways to put plausible and realisable, in best case scenario, plans in front of us, and I commend them for that, and I thank everybody who's contributed to bringing us to where we are today. Thank you.
Councillor Wales.
Just to sum up, perhaps, as we seem to reach the end of questions. Yes, this is a key step forward in our Quality Homes for All programme, and I'm delighted to have got it as far as it has, and with the help of the officers, then let's face it, all the work. There are three options to decide on. Option one is preferred. 2 is to mothball the site, and 3 is to sell it, but 1 is to go ahead with the development, which I'm assuming that will be accepted. And then the recommendations are all listed out on page 182, so there's quite a number of those.
Yes, shall I read them out?
Do you want to read them out, or shall I?
For
need to be read out for the record, but I would certainly propose this report.
I was looking forward to it. Councillor Sumsgill.
Thank you. With my biodiversity and climate change hat on, I'd just like to stress the need for the design and to be adequate, and more than adequate, and comply with the regulations that we hope to enter into. And I note the comments in the document related to those biodiversity and climate change actions.
Thank you. So, Councillor Wales, you're proposing the recommendations on page 171, aren't you? I'll second those.
On 182, yes, page 182.
Oh, okay.
The recommendations, yes,
Probably both.
having completed my summing up.
Is that agreed? Excellent. And that, I think, is the end. I now declare this meeting closed, it tells me to say to you.